think we'll open the meeting. So there are no public here for comments. And
We have to turn it on.
It's on.
it's
been on
I
this
think
whole
it's
time.
on. It's been recording.
You
Well,
have to
so-
charge for that stuff.
I think they'll edit this.
Yeah, so
edit
maybe
this
people
out.
Yeah.
on
It's gonna be
Cat TV
the-
are gonna
The most
learn
Just
frequented
unplug it.
YouTube video
Great.
pretty soon.
Anyone wants to come to my classes, you're welcome.
Treasurer's
Can I do it?
report for April. Do you want to comment on that, Mary?
Jim's on.
Pardon?
Jim's on.
Treasurer's report for April.
Well,
Do you
I
want to
will
comment?
just briefly say that we did receive, or there was a payment, a rent payment made in the
Okay.
month, last month. I just wasn't in town to get
Okay.
it, pick it up and have it deposited
I-
in the month of April,
Thank you.
but it was timely
I
paid.
would have asked you. Because I
Yes,
saw that.
yes, no, that was
We were one
there.
payment short.
And then the other, as expected, we got the large $500,000 from the state. That
Right.
payment is in. So that's always good to know. And then just awaiting after today's warrant, then see what might be left for next month, so that when we're sitting here at this time next month, we'll be able to get a year-end projection
Okay.
and thus work on the tax.
But I believe we
Anticipation.
are done with payments to all the other.
As far as I can count, yes, we are.
We've
I
done
just-
4 payments to
Right. Right,
all of them and 3 to
Right.
Shasberry now.
right. So,
And
unless
so
there was
there's-
anything else with regards to construction and bathrooms and, you know, any other large expenses, I'm just not sure.
And we're on 11 pay basis with the village school,
11.
so this is our last payment there. Our May payment is the last one.
But there's no true-up, there's no sort of,
We didn't
No,
have any
okay.
adjustment this
It
year.
actually, yeah, it didn't change.
okay.
It didn't change.
I'm sorry, I forget if it's June or July when we don't get a payment, I forget.
It's June, because it's an 11 pay contract.
I know.
Yeah, you definitely get one in July.
Yeah,
And you get one in July.
Okay. So I just wasn't sure. You know, it's one of those 2 months, but.
Okay. So theoretically, we're pretty much close to finished
Yeah,
for the year.
yeah. Like I say, I
I
just
believe.
wasn't sure whether there would be any thing that was not the normal items, such as the bathroom repair or
Yeah.
anything else
Those
that
are,
might come in, or
Right.
legal, or consulting, or whatever, what may have.
and we received no more money on the insurance claim because we have a person who hasn't talked to them about why certain things were done.
Hmm.
And I can't,
The contract.
I'm gonna have to call him back, talk to him again, because I told him what to do and he hasn't done it. So. Okay. Aside from that, I don't know. Budget status report, you may look at it at your leisure. everyone. Consent agenda, that includes minutes for the April 5th special meeting, which was Maria and I talking with Kim at a remote, and Kim remote, calling in basis, talking with the AOE personnel about our Section 9 report. This was called Section 10 discussion.
Section
And
27
minutes
later.
for the April 11th
Yeah,
regular
right.
meeting. And then the warrants are enclosed somewhere. Well, the warrant was in the packet. That has all the incidental expenses and the payments to Highland Hall, South Shire, Pine Cobble, and Village School. So, someone want to make a motion for us to approve the consent agenda?
Second?
Thank you. Anybody want to comment about them before I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Done with that. Policies, none. Superintendent, no, nobody's here to report. Let's see, at the last SVSU meeting, in case you didn't watch it,
Yeah, I missed this one, sorry.
there was some discussion about the public comments policy of the district, which was amended by the policy board. Maria? The amendment was basically to say, to remove that little cutout where you didn't have to have a public comments item on your agenda if it was just for executive session. So that seems to have taken care of objections from Sean Marie, I think, from what I can tell from the meeting. Was there anything else significant that happened at that meeting? I don't think so. So, chair's report. Well, we got a bunch of items there. Let's go over the audit real quickly. I'm just going to go down their letter and comment on specific sections of it. Significant audit findings. They note that all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period, that we're following whatever version of GASB there is at the moment without that having any real impact on our financial statements. They believe that management's process for determining estimates on uncollectible accounts, depreciation expense, and deferred tax revenues were firm ways of doing it, so they have no objection to them. No difficulties found in performing the audit. No adjustments of misstatements result of audit procedures that were material. No disagreements with management. Management has responded to certain representations they asked for them from the management about this audit. And there was no consultation with other accountants necessary. Cordial discussions between management and the auditing firm. And their usual other matters required supplementary information. We did not audit it. It's required supplementary information, which is provided by the business office. It's not provided by the auditors. And that's it. This information is restricted to our use. So, it's a very clean audit, and that's what we've had for years. One thing, this is the third year of their contract, and so the SU sought a new audit bid and put it out to a number of parties, asked for quotes, got only one, which is our current company.
May I ask who it is?
It's R.H.R. Smith and Company. They're out of Maine. And they gave us a quote that maintains the current expense level for next year and then some increases the following 2 years. But no one else bid, so, and it's good that they didn't ask for a whole lot more money. In our particular case, this district, along with some of the other districts, we get a minimum cost price. I mean, they charge, they don't, they won't quote us something less because of our low-volume transactions. They just give us a fixed price at the moment. And so that's the audit. Get rid of that. Back to the agenda. Enrollments, I don't really have much to report. I've started sending out requests to parents who have children in other independent schools and Shasberry to confirm their residency. And I will do the same working with the office here once I find the time to get it done.
I just opened up that document and it's showing the comparative enrollments from 16-17 to 17-18 for each of the districts, for each of the schools actually. And for 16-17, we didn't have any students in North Bennington, and then this year we had 135.
Well, it's because they weren't doing their job on this. And it's because I asked them why, you know, that it was, I pointed out that it was insane not to have students if we're a district taking public money and spending it. They finally.
So they couldn't come up with that number from the board to demonstrate
No,
the
they're not
increase
going
in
back to
students?
But if you see the differentiation now, that's as a result of my
Well, I appreciate that. And I knew the answer to that question.
derision of what they were providing.
It's funny that most, Ben L saw a significant increase in students.
Yeah, they had an influx.
The rest, all the rest had a decline. No, Woodford had one increase from 22 to 23. But then there was 40 extra students at middle school and 40 extra in the high school. And yet the totals dropped. I'm not sure these numbers match up, but seems like there's a bubble going through the high school as well.
Yeah.
Middle school.
I know there is one in the middle school because they talked about that just last week.
Okay.
It said the current 7th grade is very large.
7th grade, so
Correct.
that would be everybody contributing to this little bubble.
Smallest class.
Mhm.
Our-
Yeah,
no,
here
not
you
so
can see
much.
it's 242, which
Yeah.
is
Compared to
quite a lot
Prudential.
larger than, well, I guess the current 11th grade, which my daughter was one of these 234 students. It's also pretty big.
Yeah.
Tim, could you speak up? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the current 11th grade also looks it's also pretty big, 234. The current 7th and the current 11th are a fair bit bigger than most of the others.
But then the 10th at the high school, the 9th, dropped as many, 34, which actually is 15% of 13% drop relative. I guess that's probably just natural flux.
Yeah, I
in the
think that
system.
some of that is like the Dennell, I think that's just a one-time event. From what I've heard say.
What was our 6th grade last year here? Because it's not on here. You said it was small. What house? 10.
And it's still not telling us what,
Mhm.
it's still not breaking it down there.
Right,
very-
right.
That's because this isn't the public school attendance. We think it's on.
Okay, I don't.
It should be. Volunteer was able to set up, but not actually be here for the
Yeah.
meeting. so-
Yes, we know that. I was here, I saw it.
Ah, excellent.
You told me you were going to pick it up tomorrow.
I my public hearing and panel went really short tonight, so.
Okay.
Good.
I'm superwomaning.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Do you want to speak to legislative business?
No,
Have
I'm
you
really-
been following?
No, no. No.
I would like to ask Lori about the pre-K situation. I forwarded that missive from Alice Miller, but that wasn't my understanding. She sounded like they had dropped all that stuff about,
No. So, at the meeting I was at last week for this, so it's now become informational, so they want to know how that would affect all of the pre-Ks. And they really want to pursue it because basically it's costing them a lot of money to have 4-year-olds in pre-K and pay that subsidy. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things going on
Right.
with pre-K right now. So I have this form to fill out, like how many kids would that affect and all that. And our feelings and thoughts on having 4-year-olds in kindergarten and 5-year-olds in kindergarten. And
4-year-olds, no.
so, yeah, I think we all feel the same
Yeah.
way. You know, I mean, developmentally, they're not ready to be here
No.
most of the time, so.
You got a lot of
There's a lot
5-year-olds that
of, there's a
aren't
lot
ready.
of, we have to respond to a lot of different things about that. How we would feel about that as an early educator
Right,
and what effects that would have on the children.
right.
So it's still out there. I mean, it's out there because they're still talking about it and they really want it to happen, so. But it's out there as information,
Okay,
as getting feedback.
all right. But the rule that they are implementing is the cutoff date.
So 5-year-olds, this year we had a couple of 5-year-olds who turned 5. They could have come to kindergarten because our date was December, but they stayed, the parents kept them in pre-K for another year, and they were eligible for the subsidy. And so that has changed. If you are kindergarten eligible by the date, and you opt to stay in pre-K, you will not get the subsidy. And we have actually 3 sets of parents who have chosen to do that. So their child will stay in pre-K another year, and they will not get the subsidy, and they'll pay the full tuition for that. Because they feel that their child needs to stay in pre-K another year. You know, so they're doing what's best for the child regardless of what it's costing.
Right.
So yeah, that is a pretty big change, I think.
All right. And they can do that whether they're in an independent school like the village school or in a public
Mhm.
school? They have to pay public school tuition too?
They have to pay pre-K.
Right.
They have to pay whatever the pre-K
Right,
cost is.
right, yeah. Yeah. So that's a big change, and then
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with this other. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of pushback about that. We don't think that 4-year-olds should be in kindergarten. And where would we put them? I mean, we couldn't, it'd be a nightmare.
Someone is not talking to, like, they think this is somehow going to save money, but someone is not talking to the people who are spending money through K through 12 education.
Yeah.
They're only looking at not spending as much money in pre-K
Right.
education, but
They're
it
going
costs
to dump
more
those
for,
expenses
it
in-
costs
in
more
source
for K through
K6.
12 education, so I don't understand, K-12 education. So I have no idea how someone is not putting together those pieces, that the highest tuition for pre-K for our school is around 10.
Right,
Where
$10,000.
it's a
so.
$5,000 difference between that, it's almost $5,000 difference between that and what it costs for K6. So someone is just not putting together the larger picture of what that economic impact would be, to say that all 4-year-olds should go to kindergarten.
You know.
Well, and they started out at the reverse of that. right? The
Exactly.
reverse
Right,
was,
right,
we need
yeah.
to cut costs by
Yeah.
jettisoning all these younger ones, that wasn't gonna work, you know?
And then they're calling the 3-year-olds not, so there wouldn't be a pre-K anymore, it would be daycare.
Right.
So the 3s would be in daycare.
So they wouldn't have to pay for them.
So they wouldn't pay for them.
Because it's not a pre-K.
Right.
So what are they gonna do, what are they saying they're gonna do with the 5s after the four, like,
So the
are they gonna
fi-
stay in kindergarten 2 years?
Or is graduation?
Right.
What, and it's not the answer necessarily, but we have what I would call an early K and a K.
Yeah.
And the early K would still be a kindergarten.
Right.
But I would then say, after early K, they go to K. And there might be a select few that we say, oh, well, you really have excelled so much that you've demonstrated that you should go on. It's the best choice for you as an individual student. But the majority of the kids,
We're gonna do
I would say,
an early K and
you know,
then,
Yeah.
and-
Oh,
and-
yeah.
And what's
that's
that
what I
gonna
would-
be, how's that gonna be built out?
yeah.
It would still be a kindergarten. It
So
would be an
you would
internal
be
designation.
Kindergarten.
It would be
yeah.
an
build
internal
them as-
designation that this is an early K, but we would still build them as kindergarten because they're
Because
forcing us to
Right.
serve them.
It's at
And
an
it's-
8th year.
So our
really.
Right,
costs
so
are
then
actually gonna
we're
go
paying
up.
for an extra
Yeah.
year of students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's really, in my opinion,
That's not saving us anymore.
No,
I'll tell
that's what I'm
you.
saying, is it's
It's
not saving any money.
costing.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying that that's really, in my opinion, what we would do, but also the best service for a lot of those kids. Again, there might be a select few
Right.
who, they could just go right into
Right.
first. But most of them, I would say, well, we've done early K, now you do K. And then,
Right,
and then
right.
you go on. And that's just the way the model would work. So it doesn't necessarily make sense. I mean, could more schooling help? Absolutely. But is it an economic choice? I don't see it as a positive economic choice.
The whole thing has been about property taxes, and that's just dumping right into the property tax situation again. It makes, I can't even follow why this came up as a suggestion, because,
just like,
as you say,
all of a
it
sudden it was
doesn't seem
there,
to.
and
It's a whole nother,
you know.
whatever the total number of students per grade in Vermont, it adds that many students to the roster. Like that, how does that?
But it adds cost to the roster
But
at the same
that's what I'm
time.
saying.
But
So
think
it's-
about, I mean, we could find a space. I think we could find a space if we have to
We
do
would make,
that.
we would make it work.
But look at places like Molly and Benel. Man, you know, what would they do? I mean, they're right tight
Yeah,
with it right now, you know?
right.
I don't know. But for September, it,
So nothing's gonna change this coming year.
only the 5s, if you're
Yes.
age eligible, then you
Right.
can go to pre-K, we're just not, you can't get the subsidy.
Right.
And we are full with a waiting list for September.
Right. Now, they also last year have been talking about, at the House Education Committee, where all this seems to happen, about, because Kate Abbott was very strong in going up there and advocating for the system we have down here, which has a lot of private providers.
Right, oh, yeah.
And like David Sharp didn't understand.
Mm-mm.
In fact, he was dismissive, apparently,
Right, he was.
from her comments about our situation.
Right.
As if, well, what? What's he want us to do? He wants us to change the system and put all those kids into the primary schools directly.
And most of them in our partnership are private,
Yep.
small, private,
Right.
you know?
And you've got to think that this has some positive impact on their practices that carry over beyond just the 10 hours. Right. Seems to me it's a win-win for a very low number. The only issue with it is that it's not very equitable at the moment, because you have a lot of children still not being served, and people who are of lower income find it difficult to just, you know, how do they pay out for the rest of the week when they're working?
Correct, but, you know, I feel lucky that we have those children that are coming at least 3 days a week. It's more than perhaps they would have been coming
Right.
at all. So that's better than nothing, you
Yep.
know, 3 mornings.
Yep. Okay, well, that's one item. Has anybody paid any attention? Tim probably has paid attention to the special education stuff. You care to offer a comment or a description of what they've done here?
Well, for independent schools, they're punting, is what they are. Since they're gonna, we gotta look at it for a number of years because it's not something we can implement, is really what it's come down to. They've realized that their goal of asking all independent schools to be special ed compliant is just not possible. There's not enough providers, there's not enough servicers, they just couldn't do it without more investigation. So now,
Nor does it make sense.
I can't even, like, that they haven't answered. They haven't really dealt with that piece, but they finally have realized that there's no way, even if they ordered it, they couldn't implement it. So they've sort of said, okay, we're gonna look at it, and they said the earliest implementation would be, I mean, it's actually been punted. In earliest implementation now is 2021. Is 2021, I think, is what they're saying.
As I recall from some figures that I saw, between the historic academies, which have special ed anyway, and this school, village school, we make up, that's 75%.
We make up the majority of it.
Yes, of the possible sped population in independent schools taken care of already.
Yeah, so
What about the reorganization of the way they, you probably haven't paid as much attention to this, the block grant system that they want to implement?
that I can't speak to.
All right, well, I did look at it a little bit, and Nicole Mace from the School Board Association made some points in testimony earlier in the session about, you don't have the staff at the AOE to implement this program effectively now. Secondly, what is going to happen when you have someone come in with severe needs and your budget is all committed? You've got a limited amount in a block grant. The block grant, there's a formula for figuring out what that amount is. But as we know, down in this corner of southwest Vermont, we have fluid populations and people pop up. And you end up, not so much at this school, although we've had people with, children with needs beyond what we could handle. But in some of the other schools, this does happen, and they end up with big ticket items for kids who end up in placements out of the school. And part of what they wanted to do was they wanted to they called it updating the regulations about when the state starts picking up 90% of the special ed cost, which was at 50,000. They wanted to go up to 75,000 before that happened. And the one thing they're giving schools, districts, is some increased flexibility about the use of the block grant money. So it could be used, I don't know how it'll work in independent situations like the village school, but in public schools, your 504 kids, if I got 504, yeah. Kids that need the ESP team support could receive some of that. You could use some of that money toward them, but I think that's not really going to happen because you've already got really high number of students with needs in most of these districts. Ours is lower, but we still have about 10, 12, 15%, somewhere in there. But the district average is somewhere around 20. And hopefully the block grant takes that into account, because it's supposed to factor in historical record on numbers of students and their costs. But I'm just thinking that this is a likelihood of another, in certain districts, another way of dumping on the district's property taxpayers costs that otherwise the state would have been bearing because of they're either high and require 90% contribution from the state above a certain lower limit, or we just run out of money. And you know, I've heard a story from Texas about budgeting in this manner, and they just refuse to provide special ed services for kids beyond a certain point. And is Vermont going to do that? I sure as heck hope not. So I don't know where that piece of the legislation is. I don't remember the name, the number of it. I did ask Alice to send me a comment, but she just spoke to the special ed, to the early ed piece of it. You know, they've tried this block grant proposal. It's piloted, and apparently they kind of like it, but I just think that financially it's a cost shift, basically. And from my point of view, for a number of years, I've thought that the only fair way to do this around this state is for the state to take over the funding of it, because then small districts will not be hit in this random manner with costs that they were unprepared for. They have to go into a deficit for it. We've never been in that situation here, but a school under 100 could get really, really beat up by someone moving in. What else is there? There's the tax bill, but that's been gutted. The House bill's been gutted by the Senate. And they took away all the income tax changes that would accommodate, would draw more money into education from the income tax.
Did you read this from Meg today?
Yeah, I skimmed it and I don't. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, it's just funny. It makes the point that there is no $60 million deficit in the education fund, because the way education is funded is for communities to vote on the budgets prior to there being, they determine what's needed and then they fund it. And the only reason there's a deficit is that the governor wanted it to look like he was relieving property taxes last year by artificially lowering taxes with the surplus. And that was a
13 million.
A concerted effort to make it look like there's a crisis where there isn't, so that he can then call for a depletion of 1,000 teachers or educators, staff members.
Over 5 years.
Over 5 years. You know, it's really cynical and it's bumming me out.
Well, a number of actions by the legislature over the years, they focus on education because it is the largest single expense in the budget. And their focus has been pretty strictly on the finance part of it.
And ways to make it appear like
they're still supporting an equity-based education system. It's not all that clear to me that that's what we're doing anymore. So, all of you could write legislators, make comments.
I'm trying to think what kind of successes there were this year up there. In any,
Marijuana legalization.
that was gonna say that, and that was taken care of in January. Other than that,
But they didn't set up a plan to regulate and
Yeah,
tax.
they just
and that would take
basically
tax.
decriminalized, but it did actually pass a bill.
Brian tried to get tried to do the PFOA thing, and
Right.
that got,
The governor vetoed it and it got upheld, yes. Right. All right, so that's legislating, unless anybody else has something else to say about it.
let's move on to bathroom, where Tim
Well,
wants to
let's
talk
go with Tim talking about
safety.
safety.
So I think I've supplied you guys with this
You did.
before, just so, I've met with,
You have the right way.
This is just obviously a very timely thing across the country. A lot of funds are being put towards making schools more secure based on the active shooter situations that have occurred over the last number of years. And I think there's a lot more energy going in this direction than ever before. So what it has prompted is a lot of people have, it's not only me reaching out to them, it's them reaching out to me. So this was our first sort of report and the quickest in returning to us. And this was from Luke Hall, a sergeant in the state trooper's office. Lieutenant Dutcher also came here from the Bennington Police Department and did a walkthrough with me and said he would do a formal report similar to this. I've not heard back at this point, but I hope to. Other law enforcement officers have also just stopped by to put a name to a face. During the Mother Goose thing, I had to leave that because the game warden was here to see me, and I'm like, what is going on? And I went downstairs, and the game warden was just there to
Checking on the Mother Goose.
yeah, to check on
There you
the
go.
loose Mother Goose, but it was just to show me that his name is Buttle, he's a very nice guy, but just so that we know who he is.
Mhm.
Because he actually could be the first responder if something were to happen here. So they really have made a really big effort to try and get people into the schools so that we know who they are, what's going on, all those kinds of things. So I think they're making a really strong effort across the board. The other person I've met with is Vic Milani from SVSU, and if you guys remember a couple of meetings ago with Jim. Was it Jim or was it the assistant superintendent?
Donna might have been.
It might have been the assistant superintendent who was here, and she said that, yes, Vic would be happy to help us, and he's been very good. So I had my second meeting with him today, and he's the one, Vic Milani is the one who's actually written all the emergency procedure things for the whole district. And what he and I went over today is he gave me a copy of Pownell's sort of as a way to, as sort of another one for us to look at. So now we have our original one, we have the one Lori created, we have this one, so we have a number of them that we're going to look at and make sure that all of our pieces are in place. And it really comes down to, there's so many scenarios these things start to delve into. But the key really is there's sort of 5 key responses, and just going into those 5 key responses again and better preparing ourselves for any of those. And that's, shelter in place, lockdown in place, stage 1 evacuation where you just leave the building, stage 2 evacuation where you have to leave to someplace else, and stage 3 evacuation where you have to get further away. So, and rewriting these things. And then you look at all the different scenarios, weather events, mechanical things, and which one of those things do you do in terms of those things? So, you know, the idea would be that a document like this, that's 55 pages, the only people that are really going to need to know that are me, as the incident commander, and the other people who help me write it. Everybody else is really only going to need to know those 5 things, because we don't want them to, they can't know more than that. It's just going to become overwhelming to ask them to go, here, memorize this. And, but these provide a good template for us. So the other thing that has happened, I don't know if you've seen, there's a huge grant that has been put forward by the state. It's somewhere in the range of $6 million that is going to be put towards improving school security. The request for proposals is going to be released on, I think, June 1st. And schools will be eligible for up to $25,000 grants. So Vic and I and some people here would like to put forward a proposal. He thinks we really would, because the thing that we don't have that a lot of the other schools already have, so they're sort of looking sort of a couple pieces down, is the secure perimeter. It really comes down to the entryway, which we've already talked about. So we might be able to offset some of our costs in doing that. So the big things there are, you know, locking the front door, putting in the cameras and things like that, because we don't have a line of sight on the door. So we're going to have to put in potentially more cameras than other institutions would be, because we have to be able to see them at the door, also come up the stairs and make sure they go right to the office, because if they then turn and go up the stairs or down the stairs, we then need to respond. So we actually have to have more cameras than a typical place would, just because of the access to our space. So that would be sort of the first piece in our proposal. The second piece would be the film on the windows, which I think I talked to you guys about, which would help secure those. And then the third piece would be the panic button, which could potentially tie into our existing fire alarm system. And the panic button would be a single, you know, we might have 1 or 2 buttons within the building that you could press, you know, in the main office or maybe in another location if we, and the idea would be you press it, it automatically calls 911, and the fire door is just like in a fire. It releases the magnets, so it at least secures each level of the building. So if somebody had already gotten into the space, you know, maybe they came up to the main office, and that's when we realized, okay, this is a serious threat. We press the panic button, and it secures the upper level and the lower level. They're already on the first level, so at least it contains them to some degree, slows them down to some degree, and alerts the authorities, and also makes some sort of an alarm in the building that would be different than the fire alarm to notify everybody to go into lockdown. Those are the 3 things that we feel are the top priorities in our tick box, and he feels pretty confident that we could put that into it, and probably, because we don't have the secure perimeter, that we'd probably be one of the strongest candidates for getting that funding, and probably it would come in well under, like those 3 things would come in well under the $25,000 mark, so we might be able to completely offset our costs there.
That would mean some locks that are activated buttons on the interior doors that are fire doors now?
So you'd have to change some of the locks on those so that they would be in a locked situation all the time. So as soon as the fire door
When they close,
they're in the locked. Now it allows the person to come out, so there are always those pressure handles,
Right.
so that if you have to, because they go for a fire, you have to be able to get. So the idea would be, but from the outer part, you can't automatically get in. You have to key in. So it would be some changes there, but not monumental by any means. We have a quote, at least on the you know, and we might need to get a couple more quotes just to satisfy the RFP. It depends on how detailed they need us to be. But we have one from Adams to put in the cameras and the doors and stuff like that. We might wrap in, we'll think about how much the total fobbing all the exterior doors in that. It might just be prudent to do that when we're doing these kinds of things. And the real benefit of that is we really then know, you know, Lori's coming into the building at 5:45 on a Tuesday night, do some things in our class. So we'll know, because it'll be individualized as to who actually has fobbed in. We'll know exactly who has been coming in. And then, if someone were to depart from our community and didn't return it, we can easily just turn off
Yeah.
that fob, because they're all individually numbered or something like that.
I think
So
that
the
makes
electronic-
a
So
lot
they're
of
more,
sense.
they're more expensive than keys, but as far as securing the building in a more, it's, there's a lot of benefits. And we also then know, it's great, like if something were to happen, let's say.
We know who was here.
Computers
Yeah,
went,
right.
computers went missing or something like that.
We
We
still
know
watch
what
it.
fob it was that was here at that time, and like little things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to that.
I very much encourage that. I think that's important for reasons other than
Yeah.
this particular one.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
every teacher at the middle school, at high
Yeah.
school will have them.
Yeah, so there's different ones, there's cards, there's fob, so we'd investigate as to what the best option is. But there's a couple of different ways to go with that. So the turnaround for that is pretty quick. What I'd like to do is for us to draft it. I think it would be great if the Prudential Committee, we would want you to look at, and then for you guys to sort of co-sign it or something like that, to say, we also support this endeavor or something, because I think then it becomes more powerful than us just putting it out there. And Vic said he'd be happy to look at what we put together before we send it off.
And this is before that June 20.
So June 1st is when the
June
RFP,
1st,
the
okay.
request for proposal comes out. And so we can't really draft it until we get that, because some requests for proposal are very specific as to exactly what information you need. I don't think this will be a long narrative one, but I think if we have reports like this from a couple different sources that say, these are our priorities, and we can put them in as attachments, and these are our plans, I think he's right. I think we would be a strong candidate for meeting those needs. So that's where we are with that, and then we slowly start to tick off the future considerations. The next big one, which would be a larger ticket item, is the phone system. Because communication within the building is not perfect by any means, to put it lightly. When we call for clear the halls, it's not heard everywhere, the phone doesn't ring well in some spaces. There's also now phones that could be PA systems and have integrated lights so you could have them flash. So they could flash as your alarm for the lockdown, so that it's a sound plus a light. But there's different things, and our phone system is now at the upper end of what a system should last. So when we do this, I think we want to do one that would be able to meet a couple of different needs, so that it would mean communication, but also potentially looking at some of the safety things that might be.
Can that all be integrated into the same internet upgrades that we did?
So you could potentially go to a Wi-Fi system for phones, but then
Right.
you run the risk of when Wi-Fi potentially is not
Yeah,
working.
yeah.
So I'd have to really figure out, and it's not me figuring it out, it's me talking to other people who have already figured it out.
But not even Wi-Fi. This has all been wired with Cat5. Each room has wired.
Oh, yeah.
internet,
No,
which-
that stuff should be integrated, but there are Wi-Fi systems for phones that, that some companies are going to, and things like that, where it's all the phones are not actually hardwired anymore, they're all actually wireless phones.
I like
But I just
wires.
don't know,
Yeah.
that would be the safest bet for us.
No, not wireless, wires.
That is your main
I think there might be systems that would be pretty reasonable that would go over the normal internet cables.
Mhm.
That's what we've gone to at Bennington College now. I don't think you need to run any new wires. If
Well, I
there's
think
wired
the
internet in
I
every
think the
room,
wires,
you
I
could-
think the wiring would work, it's just, if it's over your internet ones, if the internet is down, then is your whole system down.
But even if your outside internet goes down, your building
Your
internet.
intranet is
your
still-
internet
Intranet
should still
potentially
work.
should work. But I think you're right, I think that should be the way, but I need somebody to Somebody to
Okay.
verify that.
I think that one's probably doable, and I would recommend that over wireless.
I
for
think,
sure.
I think that's where I would lean, I just would like to ask a couple of people
Mhm.
what they think. But that one is probably gonna be, that might be more costly than all three of these other things, to be honest, as silly as that seems, but.
Who is second in command if you're not here and there's an incident?
So right now, as it stands, well, see, this is interesting. Right now, as it stands, when I'm not here, Katie and Tom, so Katie Quack
Mhm.
and Tom Hudak are sort of in charge. But for this kind of a scenario, I think, when we create the full chain of incident commanders, that I might do a different command structure for incidents such as this versus, you know, if a kid is being
Right,
challenged
right,
in a
right,
classroom,
certainly, yes.
those are the
Yes,
people who step
mhm.
in. Because there are some people who have been here for long periods of time and
Right.
things like that. So I have to think about what
Mhm.
that would look like. Because we don't currently have, and that's what this lays out. It literally lays out exactly what every single individual is supposed to do during a situation,
Right.
which we need to detail. So my plan is to take what we already have, utilize the people, the existing thing, and by the end of the year, I think we can create a new sort of simple thing of the 5 things we do, but over the summer, do all the other details of, okay, if a tornado is in the area, this is what you do, you know, and do all
Yep.
those pieces and put all the labels to the people and stuff like that. So I think we can have one for our school that is very similar to this one by the start of next year, is my hope.
Okay, now, you did request participation from this board, so I guess we could have we need someone to participate for us.
So we are putting together a committee that'll be made up of staff members. We'll also, as we get further along, invite potential law enforcement officers to be, but they may not be active members all the time, but they'd be looking at what we're doing to sort of make sure. But I think it would be valuable to have.
I think it should be Matt, and I say that because we're rewriting that emergency management thing for the village of North Bennington anyway, and we have so much information, and
And they're already tied into that. They're listed on all of that
I
stuff
know.
and how, you know, how the fire department would connect to you in any sort of
right,
natural disaster.
so I mean, I just think that you readily have the information available. I mean, I think I have it too in my documents, but I think,
That's fine.
so anyway, there you go.
Who
It
on
should
the
be
fire
Matt.
department would, so Gabriella's dad is the assistant chief, but is there somebody else?
Ed Myers is the person
Ed's-
that, he's the
That's the
chief.
So if we wanted to have somebody from the fire department, is Ed the?
Oh, yeah, he should be the
primary
one.
Represents her.
3796464.
And that's Tyrese's granddad, right?
Yep.
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Does anybody else besides me think it's maybe a safety issue that the railroad is now regularly
Oh my
leaving trains
God.
parked across the entire village for
I
45
just
minutes?
wrote
at a
an
crack
email
during
to
school?
them.
We had a discussion about this last night
Yeah.
because there was an incident this weekend, I guess.
Last Friday.
But then today,
No, I
From
remember
3:10
during the week, it was right
No,
after
from
pickup.
10 till
It was
3 to
Friday.
3:25. The train was blocking all 3 grade crossings just sitting there.
Oh, my goodness.
well, or even longer.
No, it was
45
4
minutes.
o'clock
You
before
mean
I
all
could
three?
leave
So
this
okay,
building.
by
You
the
could
Verizon
parents-
store there
All
and then-
3 were blocked
There were
until,
state troopers that
what,
couldn't
3:30,
get-
then
I mean,
one let
think
up
about
over
emergency
here, and
services.
parents couldn't get through, because the other 2 main ones were blocked till 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then on Friday was a similar situation, Friday
Disaster.
afternoon.
Parents can't get to their kids, faculty can't get to appointments they have after
Or imagine if there was a
school.
non,
It
like.
was a
it's-
little-
Yeah,
I think-
and
I think on
and
the
if
Friday
there
afternoon was a
was
little
an
later,
emergency,
so-
we'd be blocking
Wouldn't
off
be able to-
responders because they're
Yeah.
blocking all 3 grade crossings.
I have sat at those crossings on the phone with the president of Vermont Railway and been told,
Too
go to hell-
bad.
go to hell.
Yeah. And they were often.
We most certainly would never block any crossing more than is not absolutely necessary. And they have full legal
They had
federal-
136 cars there today and
Wow.
129 on Friday. And I know there were 100, but Pam
You
was
counted them
trying to
all.
get home and she counted them all.
Yeah.
She couldn't go until, because she's at this third,
Yeah.
she couldn't get home until then, so she just counted them while they went by her.
But on Friday, I went all the way around to Route 7A,
Yeah.
got home, and then and it was still, and that was a half an hour later, it was still just sitting there.
No, it's a
It's good.
concern,
It's good.
and the new chair of the village board is going to write a stern letter, I think, to the State Department of Transportation, because I guess they really are the, but it doesn't matter. The railroad, they've been butting heads for decades. The railroad claims some sort of 18 whatever
But we-
law that says tough.
I'll tell you the way to do it is film the kids.
Film the kids scooting underneath the rail cars,
As much-
film the
Yeah,
kids
there's
going
that.
through
Terrifying.
No, I'm sorry.
Or in the
as
classroom.
much as crazy as that is,
the. Yeah,
you do that and you post that.
you're
Kids
absolutely
have been
right.
doing that?
I just sent
That's
you
what- that's
the
what-
letter, I
that's
just
what
sent the
I've
letter
heard.
that
I was
just-
tempted to do
oh,
it today. I was
It was
trying
awful.
to get home on my bike. I had stuff I had to do, and I sat there 45 minutes.
Last
So
week
Friday is
You
when the
made
kids
it.
were going underneath the.
and today, but last Friday Pam knew
today,
exactly
too.
who they were, and we had students in our building
Yeah.
doing that. She watched them do
That's
it.
absolutely right.
But I'm
And then
saying,
we
but
had other-
as ridiculous, but if you film
You're
them
right,
doing it,
you're absolutely
that would
right.
automatically be.
And
a
film your
felony.
kids in, I mean,
Film the
in
kids
your
in my
classroom
classroom
that are
at
freaking out
property.
because
Yeah.
So I checked with a pre-K, and then I checked in with a first grade teacher. She had a lot of late pickups. Mine was the worst, I think, because of where they were coming
they're
from.
coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
And pre-K had 3, I had 8, and I think Jody said 4, 3 or 4.
And you know, it's not a
but
legitimate
quite as bad.
expectation to even say, well, you know, you can always go over to Perrin Road. Because
Perrin Road was blocked.
There's
I
Yeah,
know,
everything
I know,
else.
but what I'm saying is I've played that game trying to do it.
Oh,
we
and
all
it's
have.
like,
We all.
And then
By
they
the time
don't
you get
park
over
on
there,
their
It's
end.
there, yeah.
it's just not appropriate.
Right.
But
And
today, for 45 minutes, it didn't even move. And I went and asked the railroad guys, and they said, oh yeah, we have to fill up the entire air system and all 136 cars, and it takes a while.
Okay.
Or it's gonna take some terrible, like 911.
Yeah, someone's house is gonna be on fire.
kids going under the
You're
train is
filming.
enough, and
So
that
the-
goes on social media. You know, when I was very impressed with the way the college grabbed onto the liquid propane thing. And that got some attention. Those cars disappeared.
That is true.
Yeah. Well, John asked me to write it down, and I emailed it to
Good.
him and all of you to see it. But the kids scooting under the train were young adults, and they weren't children in our
Right.
current building.
Yeah,
But
but still.
the kids scooting through the train, were children in 4th and 5th grade.
Scooting through?
You mean
like
like
the
Like
big
in
cars?
between the
Toddlers.
car,
Between-
in between the two cars, like over the
Yeah,
thing.
where
Yeah,
if there is a
coupling.
movement while they're in transit, there is
That's more
quite
dangerous than going under.
Than going under it, yeah.
because they have less time to react.
You know, I think Bill made the point is that the village is working on new ordinances and stuff, and there is some precedent about whether towns could start to establish ordinances that need to be followed even by these. In fact, there's a case at the Supreme Court right now dealing with the LP tanks up in Shelburne, and we don't know the outcome of that right now, but, we gotta push back, and then if there's no response, then I think it's just worth considering other options.
Well, at least for pedestrians, why couldn't the railroads be required to build walkways? At least kids would be safe.
I suppose,
Maybe
do
we could
we want,
require them.
that's like something that,
Maybe we could require them to
That's
that
build.
thing in
substituting
Florida.
another hazard.
Yeah, but,
no, I think the obvious issue is that they can take an extra 5 minutes of their time.
yeah.
Half the time, the thing is sitting, maybe they need to move where they do the switch. Maybe it's just down from, maybe if that was moved, the engine wouldn't have to sit halfway
Exactly.
across the, you know, I don't know, but for them to say there's no solution is disingenuous. And, you know, I've gotten responses like, well, you should have been here 50 years ago when there was one train after another all the time, or 80 years ago. Constant nuisance, but there weren't,
There weren't vehicles.
not, yeah, not, anyway. So, yeah, I think John Lamson's really gonna dig into that.
Yeah, I guess it's just laziness on their part.
Yep.
They don't need to do these things blocking, while the train is blocking all 3 grade crossings. It's ridiculous. They could do a little bit more work on their part.
They can just disconnect cars at the intersections, once another intersection is
Yeah,
hooked up.
there are solutions.
Yeah. Bathroom?
Okay, last item. All right, well, Kim, do you have figures in your head control?
No, but I have figures in paper.
You have paper.
Yes. So we have some scenarios that are still pending. But the quote, the main quote we have from our contractor is $10,290. That does not include plumbing, and that does not include partition, and that also does not include toilets and lavatories and things like that, but that's not that much money.
Does it include the materials that we choose for the walls and floor?
It doesn't, and that
If they're
10,000
tile, right.
is the most expensive choice.
If it's tile.
If it's
Yeah.
tile, which is coming out to be the most expensive
Yeah.
choice, the tile. So Ray has done some research, and that would give us some wiggle room to reduce our costs and not using, this is using ceramic tile,
Yeah,
this
I don't
10,000.
like that idea.
So that would give us some room. The plumbing quote right now is essentially $7,000.
Okay.
If we remove the floor drain and
And we don't, on the plumbing quote, we don't know whether that's for doing both bathrooms or just one.
we do not have an itemized quote.
All right.
With 90% certainty, I will say that is for one bathroom. But I can't, but that's not 100% certainty.
Okay.
If we remove the floor drain, if we don't put in a floor drain, we'll save about $1,000. Now, I've been asking the partition salesman for a quote. And I sent him one today at like 3 o'clock and I said, look, our board meeting is tonight, can you give us something? And he sent us, this is the first quote he got, and I'm not really certain as to what all the material even is. And so for the partition material that he sent us this quote on, and this includes all the hardware, everything for it, that's another $10,730.
For the partitions?
For the partitions and all the hardware.
And is that, we don't know if that's for 2 bathrooms or one?
This is-
Except
this
the
is
numbers
for-
are
Looks like it's for one.
one. So
That seems a lot,
That-
like a lot.
I don't think that's happening at that price.
Cardboard.
Right, and also he said in his email, this is just one material, but he didn't give me sort of any idea as to what the comparison material is on the other one. He just sent it to me because it was bad, I kept asking.
It's HDPE, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So,
Um, That's,
I have a friend who
that's a
works
lot
with
cheaper.
polypropylene all the time.
and this also says the quotes
I don't know what that costs.
represent both plastic and steel material and steel and sealing and floor bracing. So-
Bracing.
Yes, and I don't know if we need ceiling and floor, and so then he wrote, if confused, call me, so clearly I need to call.
We asked for just hanging from the ceiling.
Right, so, but this, he just shot this off to me at 5:10 because I
Yeah.
kept saying I have a meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just the basic plumbing, sink, some toilets, and faucets. This is not true, not everything on here because we have some double bids, but let's say about $600. Yeah, that's the cheapest.
And was that just, what are the unit quantities now?
Oh, good point. So that's just for one toilet.
So it's one bathroom, sort of. And all of those overlap on the sinks.
That, right, but we wouldn't, this would be a little bit more because he's only giving us the price of one toilet.
But we have, in the boys' bathroom, we have one toilet we could maintain.
Salvage, okay,
use.
okay, so we would only need one then,
Yeah.
okay.
And that would get rid of the one toilet that's a high flush toilet.
Mm.
So-
And the
Okay.
flooring you're looking at is some linoleum hybridized,
It's,
seam
yeah, it's
sealed.
a PVC,
Yeah,
hot welded product, no drain.
Which is a lot less money
yeah,
than
a lot
this
less
room.
$4 a square foot.
Yes, right, yes.
And probably would be a little bit more if we coked it up, which I thought was
Would definitely do,
useful.
yeah.
To do. And that would drop the cost of the contractor's quote because you would take out the tile.
Oh, significantly, like, at least $3,000.
Correct. You've got a square footage that's say, well, let's say it's 120, that's generous. It's more than it is, but, so.
$500 for.
$500
But that's not
maybe.
installed, that's material. Right?
No, that was installed. I did.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The coving is probably an add-on, because that requires some blocking behind it. Just-
Yeah.
And also you'd have to probably, yeah, I don't know,
The
if sheet
interface
rock
of
is
the
the
wall.
right thing on where
No.
it goes up. I think you need a cement board or something like
Durock.
Durock.
And another big line item on here, expenses, that, doing subway also as the, sort of like the wainscoting.
Right. That was part of the tile quote.
Well, floor, they have it broke down, just, panels on walls, and, it depends on what we decide to use on the wall.
Right. So, right now, I mean, if we took all these numbers, we'd have 22,000.
Yeah, at least.
Didn't we figure we'd be about that?
It would be even more,
I
well,
hope not, but
yeah.
I find those plastic panel quotes, that's just,
No, those are
seems
ridiculous.
outrageous.
Well, yeah.
Online, you can buy them, once you know what you want, and if our contractor can look at it and go, yeah, I can install
Yeah.
these, you can buy them online direct for less. And if you have to end up going with the cheaper hollow core steel,
Partitions, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean-
and he never even, that was something that I asked him about 3 times, and so when I call him tomorrow, he wasn't even entertaining that, he kept just saying solid plastic.
which
Yeah.
is the way to go. I mean, that, heck, you could probably go to a salvage yard and get marble that was in all the old,
I have a
you know,
bunch.
yeah, but you do have some marble lying around.
Yes, I guess you would.
Mostly a chipped form.
Chips. You have to piece it together.
Yeah.
But there's plenty.
Grind it up in epoxy matrix.
You guys have been great tracking this stuff down, I've been completely out of the loop, I really appreciate that. But we are hitting that point where we're just not hearing back from the people
Right.
that you've tried to.
Yep.
I had asked one other contractor to give me a price, and I've talked to him, and he has a health issue that he's trying to figure out at the moment. And depends on what the tests show, whether he's willing to commit to making them work.
And I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true. The contractor's been working with us.
Okay.
And it's
Well,
just
They're waiting on
waiting.
these other.
Every time, they're like, can you tell us? Because they're also on hold for their summer plans. So at some point, we need to cut bait or let them, because they're holding up their whole summer schedule.
Yeah.
And then,
I think we gotta tell them that at one point it's a leap of faith,
Right.
We gotta get it gutted.
Right.
Get it to the
Right.
point where we absolutely have no choice but to.
absolutely. And so
Right.
I feel like what we have to decide with the contractor is simply the material that we're gonna use for the flooring and the walls.
Right.
Get that and get moving. And
Right.
then we can call the partition person tomorrow and make some headway on what we're gonna order there. Because obviously this first quote is not attainable. And then we have our plumber, if we're satisfied with this, or maybe seek one more quote. We at least need this plumber quote itemized,
Yeah.
the very least.
And we definitely need to be certain that we're dealing with one bathroom work here or what.
I think
I
that-
know on the contractor's quote, he was clear about that, it was one.
Yeah.
No, I think the partition piece, you've got to be able to find cheaper. I think,
Yeah,
I think all but two pieces are standard,
right.
because the doors are standard. The piece separating the two stalls is standard, because
Yes.
there's probably like this certain distance they should be. The piece connecting and the doors,
Corners.
the only pieces are from the door to the wall, on either side.
Yes.
So those are the only two pieces that are custom.
And the T piece right in the middle.
But that I don't,
But
that
those are
doesn't
soldered
even need to be
soft.
custom.
And
I'm
that could
saying
be
that
cut
that
down
could
or
be,
whatever.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
I think you can just,
I bet you can buy the
sheets
HDPE in
of it.
sheets and have it cut. You can cut it with a saw.
so
It's
I,
Well,
the-
you
it's
even
the
said
fastening
that that's all
mechanism.
cuttable, that's all
so
whatever,
I
yeah.
think there's,
Well, no, I think-
reaching out to, I mean, I don't know how, I just
They're
don't know
real-
myself, but there's
Really,
gotta
I think,
be a
like,
cheaper way.
a friend of mine works
Customize the whole
with
thing out of that.
polypropylene all the time, 1-inch stock,
Mhm.
you know? Unfortunately, it's just white,
Mhm.
but, well, maybe that's not so unfortunate, but it's as durable as the HDPE,
Mhm.
and you can machine it in easily. You know, I could get him to cut it,
Mhm.
but,
It's all about the fastening systems that
Mhm,
interface
mhm.
that with the ceiling, the wall.
well,
how
but,
it
you know,
looks.
We can even buy the
you
fasteners.
can
for- they
buy,
can
you can buy aluminum fittings that would, and just fabricate it yourself, because aluminum's not gonna rust on you.
I
Not,
think I might go stainless.
well,
And that's what that quote is for,
Yeah.
stainless.
For stainless fixture, or stainless panels.
No, fittings, the
All the
attachments,
fittings. I
yeah.
think you need that in an acidic environment also. Even aluminum's reactive.
not so much with acid,
Well,
reacting with hydroxides.
But I do think.
I don't mind the
think-
notion of custom.
I think I think you pull the trigger and go on faith that you can figure out the partition piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, we're to the point where we've got the bathroom done.
Mhm.
Partitions are after the fact, once you know where you need to have the bracing internally.
Well, we just have to decide on the flooring and the
Right.
wall panels, but all other pieces are in place, down to the toilet and the sink.
So you
and-
commit, we commit to,
7,000 seems like a reasonable quote from the plumber, and then 10,000 seems reasonable from the
Mhm,
contractor.
mhm.
The whole thing is being replumbed, basically, because it's just,
Right.
sort of the whole layout.
and is there a whole lot of electrical change or not?
Well, no, and actually Ray and I talked about this today.
Well-
He feels that it's such minimal,
I think we
electrical
just
work.
go with megawatts, because it's not a lot of work, and they've
They've been
building
good.
Fine.
And they've been very responsive.
And we were actually wondering, since you talk with them a lot, if you later in the project
Mm-hmm.
would reach out to them.
Yeah, no, we can talk to them.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
I suggest that we
Well,
commit to.
here's the question. We're only gonna do one, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
We all agree on
yes.
that. Are we going to, for materials, do we want to purchase materials for the other bathroom to store at the same time.
Well, I think that's
Not at $10,000, no.
No, but that would have to be, wouldn't that be dependent upon what, if House of Tile says for this?
Whether or not it saves us a lot.
Exactly,
And
right.
and at where these.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm not thinking
Your
about the
garage
floor.
door.
Oh, we just gotta figure
Door.
out where's
I
the
said,
store.
I said, where are we storing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They used to
where
make
we
art
store
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
so,
And, you know, like the fixtures, they aren't that
right,
expensive.
right.
It, maybe it's really comes down to the toilet partitions, basically.
I don't think you'd save a whole lot by doubling any of those factors, and if we're going with a new type of flooring system or wall system that we aren't familiar with, we might be better to test it instead of having.
We could
That's a really good
probably
point.
do this with the
That's a great
electrical, we could probably have the lights done at the same time in both bathrooms.
Right, that kind of thing makes sense, if it doesn't get in the
But with
way of.
material, like new material, yeah.
All right, so one bathroom, maybe the electrical in both, and we have to settle on materials and,
I'll look over all those things you sent yesterday.
you know, I don't know if I'll hear from this one contractor, you know, because it's dependent on other people. It's not his problem. I think probably we're just gonna go with.
And then they've been so
They've been
attentive and
very
fantastic
responsive.
and patient and, yeah.
They have a connection to the school.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of the contractors went to school here. Mhm.
So, I mean, I think we need to set up a budget, which we haven't for this. And then let the board know what the budget is.
So we need some numbers from Mary, just as to what's in the, I mean, I guess we have all that
We have 70,000
You
in the
have
fund.
in the building
And we
fund.
haven't added to it this year, but-
Correct.
which we'll do at the end of the year. So there's another 26,000 minus current expenses.
But we do have some other.
Yes, we do. And I don't know what all that is. I mean, we've got the tree work perhaps,
Yeah,
and
I think.
I don't know what we'll end up having to pay on this safety stuff. Depends on what the grant brings in.
And I think for timing of it, the grant proposal isn't due until the end of June, and then they don't announce who wins until August. I think we would have already done it and hope that.
If that's allowed. So many times it's not.
So it
Make
depends
sure,
on having
because sometimes-
the RFP in hand.
Yeah, no, I have to see what the RFP
Yeah.
says, so, I mean, I think since the scope of it is not so huge, that I think it could just be done in August.
Yeah.
So that if it is that,
Mhm.
it would just be a matter of letting
Not
Adam's
that it
Lock
would
or-
affect it, but there are RFPs that if you already have savings in funding sources, you're not gonna get a grant because you've already got your savings, so
Well,
to
we
that
don't,
point.
but to that point, it's not us doing the project.
Well, yeah, that's true, but I mean, you might as well do your bathroom and just
Right.
do your bathroom.
We're gonna do the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah, and then anything, I mean, if you need other things.
There were some
do it,
exterior
you know.
lighting issues, we've got
Yeah.
soffits that still look pretty good, I keep looking
Yeah,
at them
but
thinking
you
they
can
need
at
to get
least get your
painted.
major things done.
Tree issues.
Yeah.
Tree
tree,
issues,
yeah.
that gets to the point of, I had,
What about the paving?
paving is probably, we don't know yet, but School Street was gonna be paved this year at one time, but I don't know that it looks like it will be.
I don't know.
Water Street's being paved?
Water Street is being
Water Street
paved
is.
all the way up. We're doing a bunch of things to get ready before that, like that sidewalk project.
Yeah.
But to the talk of these trees, I spoke with Ron and you know, Dan Taub passed away. And I had spoke to Jean, his wife, and about possibly dedicating a tree in his honor here at the school, because of his involvement in the
Yep.
school. And that if we got rid of these 2 trees,
We could plant one there.
that would be a place to do it, and that, and I think that's an expense that our school should incur, maybe with the help of the tree committee or
And he had
or
offered that.
donations.
Ron had offered a donation.
Yeah, so it's about getting back with Jean and seeing what she would like. I know that we ultimately want some maples there, because I guess the idea is for the sugar, even
Right.
though it's gonna be a long ways away.
Oh, no, but it would be,
Yeah.
that would be the ideal situation, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if there's something kind of a unique species, Dan was an avid gardener and into some stuff, so there might be a way to
Mhm.
interject something there or intersperse something there.
So are
So
you
that's-
going to?
We're working
keep
on
track?
that, and,
As-
yeah,
As you get closer.
and Emily, I think, did she get back to you about?
So
You talked
she-
about the
I
Arbor
talked
Day
to her, and, yeah, so I think if we can link the pieces, that would be great. If not,
I don't think we probably can this year,
Mhm.
just to, because
Okay.
the tree's gotta disappear first and all that.
Yep.
The question is whether or not you think it's too far to go to Lake Barron for that tree event.
It's just,
I know it's
for the little guys, it was when we went to, last year when we went over to, Pudding Hill.
Pudding Hill,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't remember if the pre-K and the K went last, did you guys go last year?
Mm-mm.
I think we decided that
Yeah, it was too
they
long.
just weren't gonna go,
Yeah,
right?
because even
Because
going
to get over there
post
and then to
office
get
that one
back.
year was long.
Oh,
For-
my God.
Well, and the post office needs, the park, the sculpture park area, it's another issue there. We planted one there back when.
Yep, I remember that.
And now there's another tree there that we need to remove. I mean, that would at least be somewhat close.
But when you go to do the thing out here and you're thinking about a larger tree or something, and maybe for Dan, please keep me in the loop on that, because we may want to do another one.
Right.
We may
pair it
want
up
to pair
somehow.
with and for another person.
Okay. That's a great idea. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in
Was there a
favor?
second?
Second.